was finding that my face was so orange, and
Mm,
now it's like weird because it's like adjusting constantly and it's not staying consistent.
hmm.
So I've got to do some more
Yeah,
work on that.
under your hat rim there by your nose and stuff.
Yeah,
That's orange, and then the rest is yeah,
I
and then
know.
the rest is kind of a red. I don't know.
I got to
Yeah,
figure out what to do. I put the hat on always because I like to shield the eyes from the artificial light.
yeah.
Uh, but I do recognize it's a little bit, it makes it weird. So I'll have to do some adjusting. All right, let's pull up. This is Dogecoin. I'm going to start off with Doge because this is one of the positions that we are most concerned about at the moment. So this is the weekly chart. Okay, so this is way back in May 2021, and we can see that that downward trend got beat out, where it just broke out of that and then consolidated for another year almost, and then at the end of 2023 broke out and came up to find this level right here, find this level of resistance. And then it went down again, and then it broke out. And here we can see it actually, this long-term weekly trend has been broken out, and now we're testing the top side of that. When we zoom in to the daily chart, we can see that this trend that has been progressively bearish since November is now bouncing off that long-term trend line. Also, it bounced off of the daily trend line going down. Remember, this is all of it a bearish movement. And whenever we see this, it's a double support situation. We've got support from the trend line on the daily, and we've got support from the trend line on the weekly. So it's a very pivotal moment right now. The downtrend may continue, and if it does, we'll see the price drop and probably come to find some support around 12 cents or so. If that occurs, I will definitely be shorting it. From here, I'm not doing
Sorry,
anything
what's the
right
short
now.
mean again?
Sell it
Okay.
to sell Doge for and exchange Doge for US.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So selling, yeah. So shorting the Doge will. I'm not going to decide to do that unless we break this line here. So we would have to see this fall, the price fall below that for me to know that we are actually continuing this trend. So right now I'm kind of in limbo, just holding out because I need to see confirmation. When we go into the 2 hour chart, this is where we see the complexity. So you can see we've got green volume here. Oh, you can't see the green because good old StreamYard is filtering it out. There we go. I think. Oh. Now it's just gone. What on earth is going on with this? There we go. Okay. So, with this price action here, we can see that we've got green volume right now. So, this volume being present indicates going up. But at the same time, again, this is on the 2 hour chart. I'm going to bring this up a bit. At the same time, when we have this kind of volume, there gets to be a threshold where, hey, this is kind of like we better maintain the volume. This, or rather, if the volume stays close to that horizontal green line that kind of goes through that, you can see another one over here. Down here, the threshold line is orange. Well, this green line is our threshold. If we don't have the volume to maintain the movement, you'll see it drop below that threshold. So right now we're waning on the bullish volume. So that's why I'm holding out to wait, because if we are to go up, we'll see more volume rising. The fact that it's dwindling tells me that we may oscillate into a downward pattern to retest this daily trend line. This daily trend line could very well be retested, which would bring us down to this level here, and that is 14.8 cents. So for me, I have a limit buy for 14 cents because that's the trend line. That's the current trend line. If we go down, I'll grab it then. That is Doge. Starting off with that one, let's go on to ADA. ADA, long term, we talked about this, how it's got the opening wedge here and then the closing wedge, a rising pennant, or this one here would be the descending pennant. This rising pennant will likely be how we see the price move from now on until this resistance here and this support are building up that energy before a breakout. So right now, being nice and low, I am currently long and looking for a nice bounce off of this trend line, and that will I believe that will signify some movements coming up. And because this rise here happened so dramatically there a couple of Sundays ago, this here is a benchmark. That's why I've got my limit sells set for this level here. And that's on Cardano. Next, we've got XRP. XRP also right now with some waning bullish volume. But this is not, I don't think this is going to last that long. We've got a good support here. So if we come back down, we'll probably find some support around $2.06, maybe down to the $1.90 area. We'll see where it goes. At the same time, we can see that when it has come up in volume, on bullish volume, it has done a very good job of moving upwards. The bearish volume is short-lived, very short-lived. So that's a good indication that we could be going up. This is XRP. Injective token, let's go to that one because this is another one that we have positions in. We have broken out of that daily trend line. However, if we take a look at the long term, this trend has been significant for a while. So if we were to, that's a long time. So if we were to follow that trend line, likely we'll see the price come up to butt up against that simply because we just came from this low. So it's been a while since we've had a nice big movement coming up. Really whenever it's dipped down, it's just remained going sideways. It dips down and then dips down again, and now we're kind of going sideways. So I would like to see it come up, bump up against that trend line, and then evaluate whether or not that this downward trend will continue. All right, now again on the 2-hour chart, we can see that waning bullish volume, but we still see that bearish cloud. And so the contradiction of confirmations right now tells me to just hold off, wait for it, because we're just in consolidation right now. The lows are getting higher. The highs are not getting higher. They're basically staying the same. So with this consolidation, we're basically looking at a miniature wedge here. If we draw this line. Oops. This is a miniature rising wedge on the 2-hour chart right now. So that energy is building up. We're going to see a breakout one way or the other. When it breaks out, we'll have an idea of what the next pivot point will be. If it's down, it'll likely be down here around that $8.15 level. So that's where my buys are. That's where my limit buy is. If it goes up, I would anticipate it to come up and find some resistance in this area here. This is where there's been some support and resistance in the past. There's been a big pivot point. So the next level up is probably going to be around that $12.15 mark. So that's where I have my sells programmed. So I'm in injective right now. When we get up there, it'll automatically sell around that 12.6, 12.7 maybe. Yep. Ethereum. This is the big one we're really waiting for. When it comes right down to it, Ethereum has not really gone up for a long time. Every time it goes down, it just equalizes out, consolidates for a week, and then it drops again. Consolidates, drops, consolidates, and we have no indication showing that we have a bearish or a bullish trend right now. In fact, it's a fairly aggressive 3 phases to this. Look at we got one trend line here. That would definitely be on the daily chart. So that long-term trend line right there, we went down below this long-term bullish pattern, but this here is a major support of this. Has been major resistance in the past, and then of course that makes it a pivot point because we've seen it also provide support for these high prices that we had back in 2021. So we're at a major support right now. On the daily chart, we are definitely in an aggressive downward trend. We can see that there's that long one stemming from December. Then we have an inner trend line. This is something more aggressive on the daily chart. Yeah, it's even, I'm going to say it's even this. You can see just how aggressive that is now. So this aggressive downward movement is an indication of a reversal. When we see a trend line like this steepen, that is it's indication of a reaccumulation. Because the faster it goes down, the faster the institutions buy it up. So now we've got So now with this inner trend line, we're waiting for this to break out. Over on the 2-hour chart, we can see that sideways motion has been there since the March 10th. And as it consolidates close to this trend line, we'll either see a little breakout forming a new high, retesting these levels, and that's where I'm going to come in. So if it comes up to here, if the price actually breaks away from this downward trend line, it breaks out, I'm going to make the trend line again, probably, this area here, because this is the pivot point. I'm going to make where we are right now a limit buy. I'm not going to do it right now because we don't have confirmation of an upward trend. But right now, as it sits, this is the perfect spot for me to buy later on if it goes up. Now, if it continues to follow this trend line going down, we'll likely see support where we've seen it in the past at 1760, 1761, in that area. That has been a definite spot as well. But that's below this area of consolidation where we see a lot of highs and lows accumulating at this level. So that would be a big test for it to come back down and double test this. If it does that, I would definitely be setting my buy position just a sell position just above, probably even touching base on this one. Simply because this downward trend over here is really strong. So right now, Ethereum, we're still waiting for it to show signs of life. And until it does, which it will only be a matter of time, simply because of how many institutions are going to be utilizing Ethereum with their ETFs, or rather, they're the ETFs, which are being used to facilitate real-world assets, where all of our phone bills and internet bills and electricity bills and water bills are all being tokenized. Ethereum is backing that for the big institutions. So, yeah, that's what we're waiting for there. On a weekly chart, though, we can see that this weekly trend that we had all the way from June 2022, that this has definitely been broken out. And so it's about where we find support. Is it here? Is it going to be at 1500? Who knows? On the weekly chart, though, we are at a nice spot. This is a good pivot point. It would be nice to see this continue to rise up. I'm not a huge fan of these M formations. Whenever I see them, I get a little bit concerned. So we have an M because we have a low coming from a low here, high, a middle low, another high, and then a low that goes below the M, the middle of the M. So whenever these happen, it is not always the case, but that is an indication of a continued downward trend. So we have to be ready. We have to just face reality that, we might come even back down to this level here. You think about it, that's where it's been before. That's Ethereum. On to Bitcoin here. We're definitely on that upward trend still. If we intersect this, where that trend line has brought us through to election, that's an average movement, right? And that price is right now on that support. That's on the weekly chart. Daily chart, we're still seeing a downward trend, and right now finding some resistance just above the middle of that channel. But we're also, I think the reason why is because of this long-term trend line that we've seen. Oh my goodness. Look at this, has been for a long time. This average trend line. So, yeah. Yeah. This daily pattern here, this daily channel, yeah, I'm not optimistic. This low here is lower than this low. We didn't really, like the bulls pull back. Definitely the bulls pulled back. This bar here, which is encouraging. But with this heavy resistance, we need to see. This isn't even really, it's recently become a pivot point, but it's not a very strong one because when the price was rising after the election, it blew past this area very, very quickly. So I would hesitate to say that this is a very strong point. So continuing to come back up is a definite possibility. We need to see some volume. And right now, we're still in bearish volume. Now, of course, even though the bearish volume is present, we do see that we have dropped away from the threshold. So is that a reversal? I don't know. I would like to see this green come down again, down to these levels. So where this oscillator comes down again, coming back to these levels, turning green, going up. That would give me some more confidence in a sustained trend. Right now, this is kind of a weak dip. And so I think we could probably see some more consolidation over the next little while. That is that one. Let's go ahead and Algorand, which is one of the coins that Jennifer is invested in, or she's got some coins in that. I shouldn't say she's invested. None of this is an investment, folks. Got that downward trend line on the day on the 2-hour chart right now that we have broken out, but it's been consolidating ever since. So this is kind of like a do not make any decisions right now movement situation. We need to see if it comes back up and can break above these highs, then that's when again I will start setting some buys. But we need to see some stronger movement. We do have some bullish volume here, but it's kind of weak. That threshold is not being maintained very much. And so that's why we're in this consolidation. Not really forming new highs, not really forming new lows. So this sideways movement is just indicative of the altcoin season that we're in right now. I anticipate we'll have movement here soon. It's just we have to be patient and we have to let Ethereum do its thing first. Optimism. Oh no, this is what's it called? The Mantra DAO. Yeah, this is another one that people have invested in. This one is actually on a good upswing right now. We can see that it came down from here and good, strong, bullish average. And then after that, we saw the volume follow suit. And so we've got good support right now for this. This movement has good support. I would expect, because we are now at this pivot point, that we'll see a pullback. So if you are looking at getting into Mantra, I would say give yourself a limit buy around that $6.60 mark. That's going to give you a better position than right now. If you buy right now, I think that you'll lose some opportunity. Obviously, it's not a bad buy, but you're going to have some the cost of lost opportunity as the time passes and that asset goes down in value. So here's where I would place a pending buy right now.
And where is that? Sorry.
That is on Mantra DAO.
And what's the pivot
I'm
point?
not in it. It's about 660 or so. 665. I would probably set it for 665. Maybe a little bit higher. I see over here. There's actually that's where that resistance was being held. We didn't really hit it there, but then we hit it here. So I would say this is 673. Right now it's at 698. But around that 670, 673 mark, that would be where I would place a limit buy. Obviously, the reason why I'm thinking that is because we have had this. We like the volume right now is definitely good. It's pushing that threshold, but we're seeing some weakness in this oscillator here after this big long green movement. So I would like to see the oscillator come down here, maybe give us a little bit of bearish volume to rest solidly on that pivot point. Once it's there, I would want then to see the that oscillator do something like this again, where it starts to rise again. And so we just need to see that market make its move. It needs to breathe. Optimism rather. This one here is one of the ones that Denise is in, and we can see that we've actually just broken out of a major resistance point. Now it could just be a test. We'll see how the rest of this day turns out. Oh, no, this is a 2-hour chart. Let's go to the daily. Yeah, okay, so on the daily chart, we broke out of a very short-term, like an accelerated downward trend line. But overall, we can see that we're only just now starting to approach the top side of this downward channel, of this bearish channel. So we won't be expecting. I don't expect a bullish movement. For me to see this as bullish, I would want to see this here, this momentum, bring the price above that trend line and retest it on the other side. So movement that I would like to see is something like this, where it goes up and then retests the line before it continues. Right now, as it stands, depending on how this oscillator turns out, I would expect it to hit this trend line here and then start to work its way down again. Simply because that's the pattern. We won't know for sure until we see the price action break out. That's on the daily chart. Coming into the 2-hour chart, we do see that we have broken out above this resistance line right here. And over the next little while, we'll see what happens. If we can maintain this position, if we can maintain this as support, we can expect it to try to tap this trend line here. If it comes up to here and manages to break out even above this one, then I would definitely set this line as my limit buy. But again, I wouldn't want to see that. I wouldn't even consider it until the price action is adequately above this support line. Not the green one, but this one right here, above here. And that would give us that edge that we need to come and touch that trend line. All right, total market cap still going sideways. But we can see that we are rising. There is this this micro movement happening within this long-term daily trend. This long-term daily trend is definitely dominant right now. You can see lots of bearish volume. The oscillator is pretty weak and it stays down here for much of the time. So before we know before we can say cryptos are bullish again, we need to see this price action break out over top of this trend line and actually touch the backside of that. So right now I'm in I would say, let's just hold up. Obviously those positions that I've talked about on the shorter time frames, those aren't bad. But overall in crypto, we shouldn't be too excited about a bullish movement. I would love it, obviously, we've got bags that we want to see revalued, but that's why we went into the leverage trading, so that we could take advantage of some of these downward trends at the same time. Silver, I want to talk about silver because on the weekly chart right now, we can see a very pivotal moment. We are reaching a pivot point, a major pivot point. The economy is definitely not healthy right now. We'll talk about the US 30 here in a second. Silver being up against this point here, it's going to be about whether or not that dollar is perceived to be strong or not. And all the Feds might cut the rates. They said that they are going to cut the interest rates a little bit, and that means that they plan on printing. So if they plan on printing, that weakens the dollar. And if the dollar is perceived as weak, we'll see the price of silver continue to go up. It's about whether or not the masses fall for the programming that the economy is healthy. And going up to gold, we just keep on creating new highs all the time. In fact, we just broke out of that $3,000 psychological level. So right now, it's anybody's game. Who knows what's going to happen? I think that because we've just recently had this little bit of a pullback, this retracement here on the weekly chart, that we very well capable of seeing more highs. I mean, just last week it created that high. Now, on the daily chart, we're going to bring it in a little bit here, because while this is definitely a retracement from this launch that we had, there's kind of a weakness to it, and I'll show you how I mean. If we use the Fibonacci tool, which we'll have to use from this low here, if we use the Fibonacci tool, we can see, wait a minute. Here's the level. So this retracement, it didn't quite touch that 61.8 level. So because it didn't quite touch that, in my books, that's a weak retracement. And we very well may see this extension fail, meaning it doesn't reach up to the next level on the Fibonacci ratio, which would be $3,183. Because of this weak retracement, it is very possible that this is a fake out, that we are pushing up to new highs, but that this weak impulse here over the last, let's just see here. Yeah, this weak impulse that we now see is really just a consolidation. And so this is on the 2-hour chart. This retracement could very well come back to retest these $2,900 levels. And I would say that if people do find faith in the American dollar, that we'll see this drop, because that's how it works. People have more faith in the dollar, they invest more into the stocks. When people have less faith in the dollar, they invest more into metals. And it all depends on whether they fall for it. If they end up believing that this here is going to recover, then we're going to be in this for a little while longer. And this is a major retracement on the Dow Jones. We've broken past this old support here, definitely fell below, closed for 3-4 days well below that spot, and now just testing that level. I would anticipate, this is on the daily chart, we got 21 hours left to this day. Personally, I think it's going to come back down, not necessarily super fast, but come back down today to close underneath that support line, or underneath the resistance line now, and continue and find another low. And this is why I believe the Fed is talking about cutting rates, because they need to bring this back up again to make it look like the American dollar's fine. Very fascinating times, pivotal moments, not just in the price action, but also geopolitically, and with the macroeconomics are just they're crazy right now, what's happening throughout the world. One of the things I wanted to touch base on before we close off market analysis today is good old virtual bacon. And I think, oh, where's my bookmarks? Here we go. Maybe I didn't save it. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's January 27th. Well, let's go to his profile because I know I just saw it. Is the crypto bull run over? This is a great thread he's got in powerful knowledge, and I love what he's got to say about this. Bitcoin is still in an uptrend, but altcoins are struggling. Meanwhile, Trump is pushing pro-crypto policies, yet nothing is moving. What's really happening, and when will the altcoins finally take off? Here's what you need to know. Many believe that the bull run is over because altcoins haven't pumped yet. But history shows that altcoins tend to move later on in the cycle, often well after Bitcoin has surged. To understand why, we need to look at macro liquidity conditions, not just Bitcoin halving. So where are we in the cycle? Bitcoin is still in an uptrend, making higher highs and higher lows, and we covered that. We can see that when we go to the Bitcoin chart. Obviously right now we don't see it on the daily chart, but overall on that weekly chart, this is higher highs and higher lows. That trend line is solid right here. That is one solid line. I'm going to make this a little bit thicker so that we can identify this as a weekly chart or a weekly trend line. So that there is currently dominating the movement. So technically, even though everybody's freaking out right now, it's a very short-term freak out because Bitcoin is definitely following a strong weekly bullish pattern. Altcoins have not yet followed as liquidity conditions remain restrictive. This lag is not unusual. It aligns with past market structures where altcoins move later in the cycle. Much of the recent excitement in the crypto market has been around Trump's pro-crypto stance, but does it actually matter for prices? The reality is Trump's crypto summit was more political theater than market catalyst. And I agree. I think whenever we see this kind of thing, it's predictive programming. It's planting seeds for future policy. So most of his crypto-related statements come from his business organization, not his administration. So those are often paid partnerships. The summit itself was gathering for donors, not a policy meeting that shapes regulation. And his team has no official plan to buy crypto or push specific assets, even though he mentioned Solana, XRP, and others. It was clarified as irrelevant by his own investors. Altcoins don't move based off political headlines. They move when liquidity conditions improve. Another common distraction is altcoin ETF speculation. Yeah, there's talk of Solana, XRP, and Litecoin ETFs, but it's important to understand this process. ETF filings and approvals, and even approved ETFs don't guarantee instant demand. Ethereum's ETF had zero inflows for months, showing that approvals alone do not drive prices. Tariff threats are another headline making waves, but they're unlikely to impact cryptos. Trump is talking tough, China, Canada, and Mexico, but history shows tariffs are usually delayed or even reversed. I mean, look at what's going on. He threatened it against Canada. Again, it was theater. Oh, we'll delay it by 30 days. Sure. Well, they're doing it again. Markets often panic over tariffs, but they do not drive altcoin performance. Liquidity does. The biggest macro concern remains recession fears. GDP growth is slowing, and many analysts fear a downturn. Now, when it comes to economic growth, GDP is a very weak metric, but a lot of people feel that it's important, and so then it becomes important only by their feeling. And remember what we see on the charts. All of this is just the record of people's emotion. So the same thing applies with these markets as well. GDP, when it goes up, people have the emotion that things are good. And so then it's reflected in the market because we see their positions. Recession calls are always backdated, and by the time one is official, the worst has already passed. The real metric to watch is unemployment. As long as jobs remain stable, we are not in a full recession yet. And that's something that we can see when we look at employment numbers. And currently, while unemployment in my books is high, because they don't report everybody, right? They report who's on EI, but EI eventually runs out. And a lot of people are not getting their jobs back. And so the real numbers are a lot worse. And so I think that while the employment numbers are not accurate, the reality will set in eventually. Right now, liquidity remains tight due to three major factors. The Fed is still shrinking its balance sheet through quantitative tightening. The reverse repo facility is drained, removing a key liquidity source. And the U.S. Treasury's general account is running low, meaning fewer funds are available. Until these constraints ease, altcoins will struggle to sustain upward momentum. These constraints would be lifted if the rates were dropped, because that means that they have to print in order to maintain the money supply. So the quantitative easing would be what we want, not quantitative tightening. The easing is the more printing, and depends on what they do with those rates. Liquidity cannot remain tight forever, and pressures are mounting that will force the Fed to shift policy. $3 trillion in U.S. debt matures in 2025. It must be refinanced, but demand is weak. Bank reserves are shrinking, which could lead to another regional banking crisis if it's left unaddressed. And if liquidity is not injected by quarter four, I think he means 2025, financial stress will escalate. Historically, the Fed pivots only when liquidity stress becomes too great to ignore, and this is why we can expect liquidity relief by Q3, Q4. And I don't know why he's saying 2024 again. I think he's confused. He's thinking 2025. The shift could come through ending QT, stopping balance sheet reduction, and injecting liquidity into the banks, purchasing U.S. Treasuries to stabilize the markets. When this happens, altcoins will begin their late cycle rally. Bitcoin's price action still supports this thesis. While Bitcoin has pulled back from the 100,000, it remains in a macro uptrend. That 200-day EMA historically acts as a strong level, and the 100-day EMA is also likely a short-term bounce target. So what he's talking about are two moving averages. I don't have them up right now. Let's pull up no, I'm not going to go through that. But he's talking about the averages. You know what? I could probably pull them up on here real quick. Bitcoin. There it is. And of course, bars, please. Ugh. Okay, and then I'm going to go, here's the EMA cross. No, that's an EMA cross. I don't want that. I want two moving averages. Indicators. And favorite trend, average directional index. Moving average cross. There we go. And for this moving average cross, I want the short one to be, what did he say, 100? And the long one, I want that to be 200. Let's just double check that that's what he said. Yep, the 100-day. Okay, and we go to that's on daily. All right, so now I've got the day chart here. This is coming from KuCoin, and we can see that we've got, this here is the 100-day average. We're below that. But this major line here, this orange one, that's that long-term 200 average. And we are resting on top of that right now. Typically speaking, when we veer away from that 100, like how we veered away from it here, we come back to it. We veered away from it here. We come back to it. We veered away here and came back to it. Then that's when that pump happened. So having veered away from that 100 a while, that gives us indication they're probably going to magnetize our way back towards that level. And so that's why he's saying we've got a good, like Bitcoin is definitely supporting, the next rally. Here's his portfolio update and strategy. He hasn't sold anything. His portfolio peaked at 200,000, now it's sitting at 83,000, so he's down 60%, and this is just part of the cycle. His plan is to hold Bitcoin, Ethereum, and high conviction altcoins, and exiting weaker altcoins on relief rallies. So when we see a relief coming in to some of the bigger coins, especially Bitcoin, looking like it's going to reverse, he's going to take his altcoins and just throw them into Bitcoin for a while on that relief rally. Stacking Bitcoin while waiting for liquidity expansion, and patience is the key. In short, key takeaways. Bull run is not over. Altcoins are simply lagging due to tight liquidity. Liquidity conditions should improve by Q3, Q4. He's saying 2024 again. The Fed will be forced to inject liquidity due to economic pressures, and altcoins have historically pumped late in the cycle once liquidity returns. So when he's saying liquidity returns, we want to see another new high in Bitcoin so that now we know, okay, there's more money into it. And then we'll probably see something similar to what we saw last year, where Bitcoin started to go down a little bit while the altcoins experienced a little mini run where they went up, 100, 150% in some cases. Of course, that was when we started. And so we experienced that growth and then the downside coming back to test the same levels that we bought. And in some cases, even lower. This is the most difficult phase of the market, but it's also the most rewarding for those who position themselves correctly. And I would say patiently. Patiently. So that's the update. I love Virtual Bacon for that. Thank you so much, everybody, for partaking. And I want to just close this off here and come back to this. Thank you so much, everybody. Listen, if some of you are curious about what we're doing as Next Gen Merchants, we're looking for these opportunities to trade. And I would love to help you get started if you're interested. There are some communities out there where you can go and get incredible advice, incredible guidance, knowledge. But to start off, some of them are $200 and $250 a month. And so what I invite you is, if you're curious, you'd like to learn about how to get started with this, feel free to reach out. I've got my website here, and here you can connect with me on Telegram. You can subscribe to me on YouTube. Of course, connect with me on X. And alternatively, if you'd like to have that appointment where we go over what your financial strategy is over the next couple of years and see what opportunities I can see going forward for you, let's brainstorm. Let's mastermind. There's no obligation to buy anything. I've got my private membership, but really that's only for people who are in the position where they want accelerated growth. And most of the people that I talk to, they just want to get an idea of the direction of things and things that they can apply in their lives right away. And of course, my biggest focus is making sure that the globalists and the people who are pulling the strings don't touch your money. I believe that we all have that unalienable right of property ownership, and whatever it is that you end up producing for yourself, something that you should be able to keep. And so that's the angle that I come at with this fascinating bubble that we're in right now and how it moves. I believe that we have a great opportunity to really change our financial future simply because we're positioning ourselves for this wealth transfer. We're not reacting to it. We've positioned ourselves for it. And that's what I want to see happen for you as well. So thank you so much for everybody for tuning in. We'll look forward to chatting with you later. Have a good one.